but the fragrance is nowhere near that. That fragrance to me smells like Jean Paul Gaultier Elixir, borderline into, let's say, just something else with a little bit of like woodsy notes, let's say a bit of iris and whatever else. Iris is going to be, again, Jean Paul Gaultier Ultra Mal, for example. What's happening, guys? Martin Martinez back again. We're going to have a quick discussion about this right about now. So as we are into 2025, it seems to me a lot of things seems to be changing, not necessarily always in a good way. However, at the same time, it is what it is. We find now the cost of fragrances are going through the roof, skyrocketing for what you get. I talked about it recently again in my video for Dior Homme Parfum, new edition 2025. Have a look again, you can see the video I've done on that, my review on that one. Now, cost of that one, just having a quick look on here. From 50 mil, and bear in mind back in the day, you used to be able to get 100 mil of this bottle. We're finding ourselves now in a scenario where we're getting 50 mils costing directly from Dior £103. 75 mil, so not even the 400 mil anymore. We're talking £128. Now, in addition to that, what we're finding is that the actual quality of that particular fragrance or the iris note in there has been totally, let's not say taken away, but it's been moved to the top notes, where it used to be more in the heart or the mids, and then subsequently in the base you'd get more woodsy. It seems to me like the designer aspect of that seems to be showing itself more compared to what potentially we could say Dior Homme Parfum was kind of borderline niche. When I had my bottle of it back in the day when I did a review on it, it got to a point that for me it was actually quite strong, and I struggled to wear it. I didn't know when to wear it. You had to wear it in the cold weathers. But the issue really about this fragrance is the quality of the fragrance that it was before has since seemed to have dissipated. It's dissipated, let's say. It feels like this current batch now that's coming out of these designer fragrances seem to be watering down more and more and more. We get loads of reformulations, so we have even to the point of you know, taking fragrances away. So we had 1 Million Privé, fantastic fragrance. I don't personally understand why it was taken away, but nonetheless, you know, Paco Rabanne seemed to come out with all these flankers, but they seem to ignore what the people want. Paco Rabanne Privé, that now is not available anymore, and if you want to go and buy this on like the secondary market, you're paying a crazy amount for a fragrance. That's just one example. Let's go into something else. Even to the point where we have like Invictus, we have Spice Bomb. All these designer fragrances are being reformulated and also being watered down. The potency isn't there anymore. I think 1 Million is probably the only one I could say, given the I mean, it's relatively cheap now, but given the amount of people that know that fragrance and smelt it, it's not as loud as it once was, but it still has that bubblegum vibe to it. So for me, guys, I think designer fragrances are getting to a point where, you know, I don't know what it is anymore. I think it's just a push to, maybe, I don't know if it's a focus to get to a new market and have new people come in as people grow up and develop in their nose and what they're accustomed to and what they like. They start to develop and move away maybe from certain types of fragrances. So as a younger guy, you know, high school, college and things like that, maybe your type of fragrance may be a bit louder, but that's just an assumption. If you're a guy who's a little bit older, wearing heavy sort of woodsy oud notes probably won't be appropriate if you're going to be, you know, you're only 17, 18, so you're going to school and you're wearing these type of fragrances, it won't be appropriate. But it seems to be over time, once you start to get into this sort of fragrance game, start to understand what's going on, it's all a money grab. And it seems to me, at this point now, they basically want to charge you more for less. I mean, again, let's talk about Louis Vuitton Ombre Nomad. Now, that within itself is a somewhat, let's say, relatively recent fragrance. It's not always been around, but at the same time, the cost of that's like £325 from what I looked at before, and that's just on there. Now, don't get me wrong, that is a borderline, the level of that and the quality of that is niche. Don't get me wrong, it's not necessarily a designer fragrance in the classical sense of what a designer fragrance could be. And when I say designer fragrances, I'm giving an example of, let's say, Dolce & Gabbana The One, for example. So where we have designer fragrances where you have a design house, Dior design house, Dolce & Gabbana design house, where they make clothes, the fragrance seems to come along as like an accessory along the side. So that's a designer fragrance. We have high street fragrances. Again, an example that you know so much is that of Zara, possibly even like River Island, H&M. Probably more Zara is probably the leader when it comes to that at this moment in time, but they've got so much out there, then obviously it's more a question of you go and buy your clothes, on the way to paying, you smell the fragrance, okay, let me buy this fragrance. So that's the high street. But then we have niche houses. So I'm going to give you an example of, let's say, Parfums de Marly, and we could talk about Initio, you know, particular companies that focus just on the fragrance itself, and that's their main sort of driving force. and that's what their focus is, and hence why they're niche. Usually we find with niche they're going to be a lot more expensive. You're talking easily £150 plus, and in addition to that, for depending on what you're trying to do and where you're looking to go, it can go up to easily £300-400, no problem. Now most people aren't going to be in a position to pay that amount of money, so you try and find a happy medium for yourself when it comes to usually designer fragrances, borderline touching into niche. You may go and buy Pegasus from Parfums de Marly and spend £170, and then you can think to yourself, actually don't really want to go too high on that one, let me go with, let's say, Dior Sauvage, let's get 100ml of that one. You're paying roughly around about, let's say, £60-70, let's say £70. I think it's probably more than that in the UK. It's probably now, it's probably like £90 or so, give or take, depending on what you're doing. Now it seems that to me, and again, it seems to be like kind of like fashion thing going on in the perfume sort of scenario now, because we're getting all these flankers. The flankers it's not a new thing, but the flankers seem to be consistently coming out, but the quality is not there, and I'm not understanding it. So it's like a quick sort of pick up and go designer, quick up and go designer, pick up and go. That's all it seems to be. Fast fashion. It feels like the designer fragrance ethos, maybe, let's say, is becoming borderline that of like a Primark scenario, where we just go, we have it for the season, and we pick up onto something else. Baccarat Rouge come out, let's go and make a copy of this and try and get into that sphere. When Bleu de Chanel came out, then we had Dior Sauvage and everything else. Let's try and get into that sphere for that moment. You have Prada coming out with something, everything else like that. So it seems to me, guys, got to be very conscious about what you're spending about now, because the cost of living worldwide has gone up anyway, with so many different things going on in the world. However, when it comes to fragrances, are you content with what you have, or do you continue to keep buying? Because I've done videos about this in the past about fragrance addiction. I've talked about different things, but at the same time, one thing I'd say is that it seems to be now that the focus, and again, I'm going to just refer to Dior Homme Parfum again, that bottle to me looks fantastic, but the fragrance is nowhere near that. That fragrance to me smells like Jean Paul Gaultier Elixir, borderline into, let's say, just something else with a little bit of like woodsy notes, let's say a bit of iris and whatever else. Iris is going to be, again, Jean Paul Gaultier Ultra Mal, for example. So it's like, where do we go with this now? So the fragrances are coming out so much. I mean, we got the, is it Eau Forte Dior Sauvage again. Another money grab, and that's what's happening, guys. It's a money grab. Now, I know LVMH seem to own a lot of these fragrances companies now, or a lot of these designer houses now, let's say, and I think it's clear that that's been streamlined to basically get to a point where it's just like, you see the brand, we take your money, the value is not there, but you got the brand name. That's all it is. Because if you can go, I'm going to pick this one up now and give you an example. Pick up this fragrance, and again, I look at this one, and this is just what I've done a recent video on, so go and check that out. This is Soap Sun, and again, this is costing me what, £20-30, let's say, UK. Then we got comparison of Louis Vuitton Afternoon Swim. Cost price is completely, you know, we're talking, you know, 100%, 200% increase in cost price from 30 to, you know, £300, let's say, or 250, let's call it. Crazy amount of money. Is it really worth paying that amount of money, £250, for a fragrance, which again, you're wearing it, no one's gonna see it. At the end of the day, the people really care that much. So I'm at a point now where, guys, where I can see the game, I can see the hustle, and I think it's a sad thing, but at the same time, I understand it's a business as well. So will you be going and purchasing new fragrances, guys, or are you going to take the view to say, actually, I'm going to hold with what I got? What does it take for you to say, I want to pull the trigger and pay, you know, let's say £200, £300 for a niche fragrance? Because for me, designer fragrances at this point in time now, I get to a point that becoming so watered down, becoming so formulated, that it kind of doesn't make any sense anymore to buy designer fragrances. It's borderline of, if you know you're going to do something quick and you need a quick daily get up and go, like a daily horse to ride, then okay, go and get your Dior Sauvage. When that's reformulated, where do you go from there? And it's kind of getting to a point now where I think they're just so... The turnover of these fragrances is so quick. The quality is reducing to such an extent that they want the money, but at the same time, they're not going to give you anything back. Most people, at my point, from my perspective, at some point will be saying, you know what, I'm just going to stay away from designer fragrances. I don't even want to engage it unless someone's purchased it and it's so great, such a standout fragrance, maybe a unicorn here and there. I'm going to stick with my niche fragrances and go in that direction. Now you're going to pay a bit more, but at least you know that you're getting some quality. I can spray Initio Oud for Greatness, and I don't need to spray that probably for 2 days, because again, you can't go heavy on the trigger. It will last on your clothes. I can wash the clothes and still smell it on the clothes. And that fragrance, I think now I can just double check that one. I think it was touching nearly two and a half, let's say even £300. And when I bought mine, it wasn't even costing that much. Everything's gone up in price. quality is going down, and we kind of left just thinking, well, what is this about now? And that's just the fragrance community. People in the street who are just not really into fragrances in that way will just pick up a fragrance, think nothing of it, and say, oh, okay, that smells nice in that moment, and then they move on. But if you know that you're spending time with these things, you know at the same time that you've got a nose for these things. Me personally, I didn't necessarily choose to get into fragrances as such, but I'm very sensitive to smell, so I can't help but see what's going on. And I find myself now, we're wanting more. And at the end of the day, I smell something, I smell it in the store, okay. And then at the end of the day, you go away, you know, 2 minutes later, it's just water on your arm and it's gone and you don't know what to do next. So that's kind of what's happening, guys. I'm becoming very disappointed with the fragrance game. I already have been for some time, and I stayed away from it for a little bit, but I'm going to add my 2 cents on this one. You leave your comments down below, guys. You let me know what you think. Do you think that the fragrance game is only going one way now? It's always been about the money anyway. It's always been business, but do you think it's getting to a point where you go even one way? I think it could get to a point where designer fragrances, where they're kind of in the middle, some people are just going to just literally leave it all together. You're either going to go high street, just to have something to throw in your gym bag, or you're going to stick with niche and be in that side, and you have less, but you have better quality in the niche side, but you have more. At the end of the day, you've paid less if you stay on the high street side. So you let me know, guys, your thoughts on this one, and I'll see you next video. Peace.